Okay, it should be coming up now.
Let me refresh.
It's there.
Does it show live? Let me admit some people.
There we go.
One second. Oh, there we go. We're live. it was frozen on my end. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our weekly Tuesday talks. We have a very special guest today. I am Carmen, and we have Shannon, and we have Miss Ramesha Nicole. And you're going to talk about some wonderful topic today that affects every woman. And please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So hi, Carmen. Hi, Shannon again. And thank you guys so much for having me. As Carmen mentioned, hello, everyone. My name is Ramesha Nicole, and I'm known as the Internal Debt Collector. I am the COO and founder of Finance Therapy & Co., which is a coaching and consulting company that focuses on the holistic approach to financial freedom. And when I say I'm the internal debt collector, I focus on the things that are on the inside that often plague, right, our finances. And, you know, my firm belief is that true debt freedom is in your mind, your body, and your soul. And if you are not whole and free in those areas, it not only affects, but infects your finances. And so that's just a little bit about who I am, what I do. I am also a native Houstonian. So hello, everyone. Thank you guys for allowing me to be here.
That's wonderful. So tell us about your background and how did it even come about as far as just you creating this whole concept and this, company to help women with their financial needs?
I am a former 12-year educator. I recently just embarked upon this journey of entrepreneurship full time recently. But during my time, I was scheduled to go in 2018. I was scheduled to go on an 11-month mission trip journey called the World Race, where it was at a moment where the Lord, and I'm a God girl, I subscribe to the Christian faith where God literally had to tell me to stop running and to deal with my debt. And I thought that he was just talking about my financial debt. But what I learned was that he was talking about mental debt, emotional debt, spiritual debt, relational debt. And what I didn't know at the time was that I had an undiagnosed diagnosis of anxiety and mood depressive disorder. And so what I thought was a journey of me just eventually going to pay off over $10,000 worth of credit card debt. I ended up, not going on my mission trip journey at the time, stayed home, worked 2 jobs, put everything I could to my finances, right? I was upside down on a car loan. I had $10,000 worth of credit card debt. And during that journey, I thought that God was just literally having me to deal with the financial debt, but he really was dealing with my heart, my mind, and my soul, which was showing up in the way that I was handling my finances. I was granted an opportunity to move abroad. I ended up moving to Qatar for a school year. And within that 10 months, I was able to pay off the $10,000 worth of credit card debt. But it was during that time where I literally began to have to pull back the layers. Relational trauma, childhood trauma. I didn't know that I was running from a moment when I was 5 years old that was continuing to show up and affect the way that I was presenting myself. Things like abandonment, rejection, right? Those things that we don't deal with if we don't get to the seed and the root of them will show up and manifest in our finances. It showed up in perfection, the needing to always have things right. And I always say that I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? Because I still get up in the morning. I still make up my bed. That's the first thing, because my grandmother was a stickler for that, right? Getting up in the morning and making your bed. And my bed has to be a certain way. Things have to be a certain way before I leave, right? And so I really began to have to pull back those layers. And then it got to a point to where I was thinking that I was healed. When I was hit in September 2020 with it was kind of like a bag of bricks hit me in my face, where I was still noticing how some of those things were still showing up. And I literally was diagnosed with anxiety and depressive mood disorder in September of 2020. This was just literally last school year. I live my life according to school year calendar still, right? I'm not far removed, but I literally, in that moment when my doctor diagnosed and told me that I was diagnosed with anxiety and depressive mood disorder, it was kind of like, who, me? Right? But I had to be sat down. I went through an intensive therapy program. And it was during that time to really where, you know, things begin to manifest and be revealed to me that the work that we're doing while we're trying to chase the bag, the degrees, and while there's nothing wrong with that and managing your money, there are things that are still continuing to impact the way you manage your finances. There's nothing wrong with going to go get the degree, but is it really impacting your self-esteem? Were you not seen as a child? Do you have unhealed childhood trauma? Were you muted? Were you told that your voice does not matter? So you try to prove yourself, right? All of that infects your financial journey. And so throughout that time and that process is really when this birthing process of the internal debt collector and finance therapy and co really began to be birthed, is when I really began to start doing my own journey and my own work.
That's wonderful. Shannon, you want to add on to that?
Well, I just want to say thank you right off the bat, because I have never thought of it that way. And it makes perfect sense. But that is not an obvious, it should be. That's the thing. It should be. And it should be something we all immediately put together. But my mind is a little bit blown right now, because that I'm sorry about the light in here. I'm going to try to fix it. But that connection between amongst all of the things you were just talking about in terms of, and the whole, not just affects, but infects, and then how that impacts our mental well-being is it takes a lot to be able to genuinely put a human face on finances. And I feel like you just did that better than I've ever heard anybody do.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, when we met Ramesha, I that's the first thing that I thought about. I mean, who would even put together finances with, the stresses of mental health? And as you said, that could be, a long term if you don't fix it and you don't realize that. So that was a great plan that you even were in this beginning journey, and it just kind of veered into something else. So what would you tell women in general, or individuals in general? What's their biggest kind of mistakes when they are wanting to, let's say, get out of debt, or they're getting stressed out because of financial issues? What's kind of those first initials when you get a client to come up to you that you should kind of start with?
The first thing that I always do is I start with their mindset. I start with their mindset, and I start with a vision. Because without a vision, you can't get anywhere. Right now, I'm literally working with a one-on-one client. And that was one of the things that we talked about was, what does it look like for you to be free holistically? What does it look like for you to be free in your finances? What does it look like you to be free from the control from your childhood wounds? What does it look like for you to be free, from that those teenage years, because we try to fit in. Right. And, you're really trying to figure out who you are, that identity. So the first thing is we start with a vision. What does it look like for you to thrive freely in every area of your life? And then let's also look at your relationships. Then we're going to tackle that with your finances, right? And then we go into that mindset, shifting those mindsets. I'm not sure about you guys, but probably growing up, you guys probably heard things like, oh, we can't afford that, or we don't have money for things like that. And so we carry that up into our young adult years. We carry that into our adult years. And oftentimes, because of the environments that we grow up in, or the things that we're exposed to, the things we see, the things we hear, we think that we have to compensate for what we didn't have back then, right? And so we first start with your vision. What does it look like for you to be free? And then we begin to shift some of those mindsets. Who are the Joneses? Because we've been hearing that our entire lives. Who are the Joneses? Stop trying to live up to the Joneses. Who are the Joneses? When someone figures out who they are, please let me know. Please email info@rameshanicole.com and let me know who the Joneses are, right? But really understanding that, learning a level of a level of contentment. Because oftentimes, again, we're trying to overcompensate for things that we did not have. So the first thing is we deal with the vision, right? What does it look like? Breaking those barriers in your mind. And then we begin to work through that mindset. And then from there, we really begin to get to the core, those core values. Who are you? What do you say about yourself? So you can't necessarily just start with the budgeting. Having a budget, having a spreadsheet, yes, those are sound practices. But let's get to the core root. Why are you subscribing? And again, let me say there's nothing wrong with luxury. There's nothing wrong with the trips. There's nothing wrong with treating yourself, because I do not believe in denying yourself a good time. But are you doing it because everyone else is doing it? Is that really what you want? Are you afraid to say no? Are you afraid to let your friends know this weekend I cannot go to brunch, or I can't take that girl's trip this year, but maybe next year I'll be able to do that? So things like people pleasing. So we really get to the core root and look at how all of your financial decisions, everything that's in your budget, or all of the debt that you've accumulated over the years, how all of that is impacting where you are financially. I know that was a long response. Sorry.
No, that was wonderful. I know you talked about, your faith and kind of God allowing you or helping you to heal from your trauma and how you kind of came about to this. What would you tell individuals to kind of, when they see the big picture, like, oh, I'm in debt, and that's kind of like the beginning, the main topic, and you're asking these questions that now I'm like, wow, that totally makes sense. Like, what is your vision? What would you tell someone, if they only see that financial part and not see all these questions that you're asking as far as the vision and the plan, that they're just focused on that number, and that number it's also adding stress because they're focused on decreasing that number to have financial freedom?
One thing is, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Where you are right now is not where you're going to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, a year to even 2 years. I literally last year began coaching a couple who were with their home, with student loans, with consumer credit card debt alone. I want to say it was about $15,000. And they were just focusing in on the number. But we had to get to the overall picture. Look at where you are. Look at how far you've come. Think about obstacles that you've overcome in the past. How did you get through them? You did the work. It's all about putting one foot in front of the other. And so that's what I always teach them. And now, 11 months removed from where they were just 11 months ago, they put in the work. They've paid off all consumer credit card debt. Next, they're working on student loans. And then they're going to start working on paying off their mortgage. And so it really was all about learning, okay, taking those baby steps. It's not an overnight process. I always say that you didn't get yourself in debt overnight, unless there was something like a divorce or a medical emergency or something of that nature, right? Because we know that life happens. But if it was all based on your behavior, then we've got to be able to take a look and say, okay, you didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of this overnight. Trust the process.
Makes a lot of sense. And this is something that you and I had discussed. You have individuals that follow the plan, get out of debt, and then 6 months later they're back in that debt. So what would you advise for people not to repeat those patterns and kind of continue once they reach that financial freedom, or at least on the debt side, to be able to not just repeat that and be back in debt and add more stress on a continuous basis?
One of the things is, don't ever think that you've arrived. Don't ever think that you've arrived. And you know what? I had to go through that myself, because when I went to Qatar, I was like, okay, I paid off my $10,000 worth of credit card debt. What now? You never stop growing. We are lifelong learners, and it's the educator in me. It's the teacher in me. I used to always tell my students, okay, maybe you reached this one goal. Let's talk about how we can reach the next goal. It's not about perfection. It's not about performance, right? Just because you got a 75 this time, okay, let's grow 5 more points. It's all about growth, right? We're going to get you to an 80. Continue to do the work. And also be able to check yourself and get real with yourself. Okay, do I really need this handbag right now, or do I want it? Or can I save up for it, right? Listen, I'm all about consignment. I'm all about the thrift store. I am. I love those things, right? Because we didn't grow up having all of that, right? So still being able to live in a level of of contentment. I can honestly say that the country that we live in, and these are my own personal beliefs, that we are spoiled. We have consumer issues. We want. There's just a level of discontentment. And so we've got to get to this place where you're content. So I would say continue to grow, continue to make that growth, continue to make those steps and put in the work, because you've never arrived. We continue to grow and evolve.
I wonder, without trying to sound judgmental, because I don't mean it that way, we are all human, but is the current culture of entitlement, I mean, is that, I mean, there are two very kind of different angles, but I suspect they're connected. Certainly one of the things you're saying, it almost strikes me as something you hear, you know, what hole are you trying to fill by spending? And sometimes you just want something, you just spend it. So I'm not trying to overanalyze that, but there's sort of the what void are you trying to fill? What are you trying to, you know, recover from what you may have lost before? But also, we do live in a culture where people feel like they deserve stuff. You know, they deserve human dignity and respect, and you know, we got a long way to go for what people truly deserve. But do you see that as well, or is it really, yes, that's a part of it, but really over and over you are, I mean, it really is kind of a, not necessarily, I don't want to go so far as to say an addiction, but I mean, it is almost a frame of mind that can't and shouldn't be written off as there's something wrong with you, just fix it, you know.
Right, Shannon, that's a good question. And I don't want to come off as being judgmental, but that's the same question that I ask. What void are we trying to fill? What void are we feeling? Why can't we just get to a level and a place where we are content with what we have? Granted, there is nothing wrong with desiring nice things. There is nothing wrong with desiring your kids not to want to have to go to school and deal with student loan debt, right? There is nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with exposing your kids to new cultures and new way of living. But when it's all about, oh, I have this latest thing, or I have this, or I have that, what are you trying to feel? What are you really trying to prove? What is it that you didn't get? Right.
And is your self-esteem bound up in tangible things, material things, rather than what you really are worth as a human, which is a lot.
Right. And you know, you guys know that I'm a Christian. And the other day I was literally in my quiet time where I just go and sit and I spend time, you know, with the Lord. And there's a scripture that says your value is worth more than rubies. So the teacher in me, right, the inquisitive one, I go and I'm like, what is the value or the worth of a ruby? High class rubies are worth more than $1 million per carat. So you mean to tell me that I am worth more than, let's say I have a 4-carat diamond, a 4-carat ruby on my left finger. I'm worth more than that 4 million. Those things that are inside of me, I'm worth more than that. I'm worth more than this degree from this Ivy League school. Oh, we can go on that. It's not about the school that you go to. It's about the education that you receive, right? We can dig deep. We can really dig deep. But to me, debt is bondage. There is a mindset shift. There is a stronghold. When you think about a stronghold, which can be both a good and a bad thing. I heard this the other day on a podcast. A stronghold is a good thing, but a stronghold is also a bad thing. Our minds are so twisted and tied to what it means to have worth and have value that we are in trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars in debt as a nation. The suicide rate is up because people don't understand their worth. Oh, even with teenagers, I was a school counselor for 7th grade. Even with teenagers, they don't want to be my friend. They don't want to invite me to the latest party or as adults. or this club didn't let me be a part of it. So I don't know who I am without these people, without these labels, without these things. We are bound to the opinions of people. We are bound to what people think about us. We are bound to the cars that we drive. If you could get out of debt, could you downsize and move to an apartment and use the what's the funds called when you pay your house and you get extra? I still live in an apartment right now. So, but the equity, right? Yeah. Could you use the extra equity on your house to pay off your car, to pay off your student loans so that you can be liberated from that? But too many of us are bound to perception. So to answer your question, we do have a sense of entitlement.
Yeah. I am deeply moved by the matter of fact, but incredibly human way you just put that in terms of the suicide rate being up because people don't know their worth. And that is, of course, exactly what it comes down to. But that is a very profound reality. And it goes on, like you say, on every level, right down to 7th graders feeling like they don't have any friends. And yeah, sorry, I just needed to register.
So I know, Ramesha, you're on a mission, right? You're a mission to helping women. So I know you have kind of these phases of transformation. Could you share what those phases are for everyone? Because I was just, the way that you broke down those acronyms, I was just blown away how, it's just an eye opener to see that approach.
Well, there are 4 phases to transformation. When you think about, my brand has 3 pillars, right? The pillars are heal, you transform and then you get free. But then I also want to dive deeper into that when we take a look at the 4 phases of transformation. Think about a butterfly. A butterfly goes through metamorphosis, and I can speak on this because this has literally been my story for the last 4 years, right? I am not speaking from a place where I have not gone through the process and I'm not still going through the process. But one of the things, the very first phase is, so you think about the egg. The egg is laid on the stem, right? You think about, okay, you've come into this world, you have all these past lessons. Think about your childhood. Think about, your youth, your adolescent years, right? Think about middle school, you're trying to find yourself. High school, you think you're grown, but you're not quite grown. Listen, because I thought I was grown all the time, right? Then there is, your young adult and your adult. So think about that, right? So those are the past lessons. Think about life, right? That's the egg phase, all of those past lessons. Okay, then you think about the butterfly, it goes through the next phase, right? Where it becomes a larvae. This is where you really try to identify who you are. Okay, who am I? Who am I? I'm in this world. I know I need to eat to survive, but who am I? We let society decide who we are. You let your family decide who you are. You let your friends, some of us let religion define who we are. And this is also speaking in the Christian faith as well, right? So then you go through the next phase, which is the chrysalis. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because this is where you are literally stripping away everything that you know about yourself, everything you know about money, everything you know about identity, everything you know about life. Those distorted thoughts, those limiting beliefs, those mindsets, everything that you've learned about yourself. And it's going to require you to go into a season of isolation where you are away from everything that is familiar. That was my season of Qatar. I literally went away and was introduced to the wealthiest country in the world. What it looks like to not hustle and bustle, to be able to wake up and you feel refreshed. And I'm not running to go chase the bag. I'm not running to go do this next thing. That there's literally a pace of grace. But I had to go through that season of isolation where everything was stripped away from me that I did myself. And then I came back to the States kicking and screaming, because sometimes, God will say, you'll say, okay, God, these are my plans. And he's like, no. I'm going to show you my plan. My plan is better. I don't know if everybody's ever seen that meme on social media where it's like you have God and he has the big teddy bear, but you're holding on to the little teddy bear like, but I want to keep it. But behind him is literally this really big teddy bear, something that you can't even wrap your mind around, right? So that's that third phase of getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? Letting go of your plan, letting go of how you thought your life was going to go, letting go of a false identity, right? Letting go and really fully learning who it is that you are at your core, stripping off all of that, digging up those roots, right? And then there's the fourth phase, which is the butterfly, where you really begin to fly freely. But it's not that you are all the way free. You're free, but you're still flying higher. You're evolving, you're growing, you're redefining who you really are. And you're showing up as a new, bolder version of who you are that's really always been down in there, deep down inside. However, just the culture, society, family, and the world has had an impact. So those are the 4 phases of transformation.
That's wonderful. So, so let's shift a little bit in the beginning of the conversation that, you know, where you got today, you had your journey, right? And your struggle. So share just a few of the struggles, you know, as you're kind of evolving into this new platform that that you're very passionate about. Share a couple of struggles that you faced with and how you overcame those at that moment. And now looking back, you realize, wow, I really didn't stop and kind of continued.
One of the things is that I'm still working through is that seed of rejection. You know, running a business will require you to contact and connect with companies and organizations. People are going to say no. Even though it's no right now, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be no later. I actually was faced with rejection, and I always say, Lord, you always have me talk about what you have me going through at that moment. Right. And this happens on my podcast too. And so there are a couple of companies that I pitched just to there's a campaign that I'm doing called Women, Mental Health and Money. And I'll be sure to share that information because this coming weekend, I'm having a webinar event. Mm-hmm. I pitched a company, I reached out to them, and I just thought that things were going well, things were going good. And then I got a no. And it literally caused me to feel like, okay, like, it looked like things were good, but in that moment, I had to really go back to what I learned in therapy, right? In my intensive, when I say intensive, I was in therapy for 5 days a week, 3 to 4 hours a day. I had to sit down. I had to take FMLA off of my job because I was having panic attacks and anxiety attacks because it was still continuing to suppress. And so what I did was in those moments, I took what I learned in my therapy program and I, really was like, okay, what are you really dealing with? And there's a book that I'm reading and I keep saying I'm reading it. I need to finish it. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. What happens is when you are triggered, your body will hold on to the emotions, the thoughts, and the feelings of a time where that abandonment or where that rejection was first planted. And so I could literally feel my body. I could feel myself beginning to hyperventilate. And so I was like, no. You are dealing with that seed of abandonment and rejection. So literally using those practices and talking myself down, grounding. Sometimes I go in my closet and I cry. Sometimes I go in my closet and I journal. My closet is my safe space. And having a safe space, right? Having spaces like that where you can, if you need to kick and scream, I've thrown things in the closet. I don't have a bat and a bag yet, but I'm going to get one of those, right? But just being able to release that, but also knowing that a no doesn't mean that I'm denied. So it's really all about me transforming my thought process. Now, had that been me 6 months ago, I would have been laid out for hours because I hadn't dealt with that seed of rejection. And I now can identify what it is. So being able to identify your triggers, being able to identify your traumas, insecurities still rise up, right? That's still a part of the process, right? And especially for high ambitious women who are bold like myself, if you're single, you want to be married. I've been told that I'm a little bossy. So being able, not a little, but a lot, right? But knowing where that comes from, right? Because as I build a business, I'm going to have an assistant. I'm going to have a team, right? Being able to trust, okay, Ramesha, the reason why you are a little bossy is because you want to be in control, because somewhere in your life, when you had that sexual assault, you lost power and you lost control. Being able to identify why I show up the way that I do. So that's been some of the work that I've been doing here recently. I just wanted to be very open, vulnerable, and transparent. But that's just exactly, you know, some of the things that I've gone through, especially on this process, on this journey.
I wonder, you said something a minute ago about realizing that, you know, the life you thought you had planned out may not be it. I read something wonderful years ago about the definition of forgiveness being giving up all hope of having had a different past. And that really stuck with me. And then I started thinking about the notion of forgiveness. And then, because you've now changed my way of thinking, I started thinking about the implications of self-forgiveness and debt forgiveness, and sort of, because it is a very, I assume there can be, I mean, there's just as with many things, shame is probably, you probably are dealing with people who are experiencing a lot of shame that they ended up in this place. And again, that has nothing to do with their self-worth, but I wondered if you might talk a little bit about that sort of self-forgiveness and there still has to be self-care as you do this kind of take a hard look in the mirror work.
Oh, yes, Shannon. We talk about that word forgiveness a lot with my clients. And let me say, I had to get to a place where I had to grieve what I thought my life was going to look like.
Yeah.
I had to grieve also when I was scheduled to go on my mission trip journey, where I had to literally tell all of my supporters that I wasn't going to be able to go. I had rallied and had people raise over $12,000 of my needed funds. And here I was going to have to tell these people that I wasn't going to be able to go. Do you know the embarrassment, the shame, the guilt that I began to feel? Right? And I had to go and look at myself and say, okay, Ramesha, life may not have happened the way you wanted it. And I love Pastor Joel Osteen, because he's always so bright, and always he looks at things from a whole different lens. And this is not to put my beliefs on anyone, but he says nothing is wasted. And so I had to know that nothing in my life that had happened to me was wasted, that I was at this place in my life of literally moving out of my apartment. I was upside down on a car note, right? I had to forgive myself for showing up as an imposter, for showing up as a fake, for going and doing things because of everyone else, because I wanted to fit in. I had to forgive myself for those transactions, for accumulating $10,000 worth of credit card debt. If you would have asked me also, I had to forgive myself. When I was 18, I knew what I wanted my life to look like. I was going to have a degree by 18, go to undergraduate, graduate by 22, meet the man of my dreams, possibly get married by 23, 24, have, travel, enjoy each other, get a house by 27, 28. Like, I literally in my mind had what I thought my life was going to look like. And so I had to grieve that sense of falsity. Like, it was false. It was a made up fantasy. And I had to forgive myself. Oh, I also, let's just even go even further with the form of forgiveness. I had a miscarriage when I was 19. I had another miscarriage where we had to terminate the pregnancy when I was 25. I had to forgive myself for that, because I was trying to cover that pain up with things. I was trying to cover that pain up by going to the next relationship, thinking that person could heal the holes that were in my heart. I had to literally get to a place, and it's still I want to say this. I don't want anyone to look at me and think that I have arrived. I am still in the process. I am still on this journey. I am still growing. I am still healing. I am still evolving. I had to forgive myself, which is still a journey. Even when I show up and I'm acting like a spoiled brat, because I am a daddy's girl, but I'm also a God's girl, right? And I'm not being very nice. I have to say, okay, Ramesha, you be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. So that self-forgiveness, the forgiving yourself for the guilt and the shame of accumulating and having people rally around you. Oh yeah, I had to release a lot of that.
So we have a question here. Is there a quality that you feel is essential when defining success? And what does success mean to you?
There is a book called, and it's right here, The Circle Maker. I had to look up at my bookshelf. Where he talks about, you pray these prayers in these circles and you talk about what success looks like for you. To me, success is being whole in my mind, in my body, in my soul, in my relationships. Success is doing the life's work that I know that I've been called to do, not what society says that I should do. That is my level of success. Having healthy kids. I want a healthy marriage. I want healthy children. I want a healthy and whole family on both sides, all generations. I want people to be happy. I mean, I know every day is not a butterfly perfect day, right? But that is my level of success, and to be able to live life on my own terms, whatever that looks like.
That's amazing. So I know you mentioned earlier your podcast. Share with everyone your podcast. What do you normally, what's your schedule when it comes to the podcast, and how can people find this podcast?
So the Ramesha Nicole Show is the name of the podcast, where we talk about ridding your internal debts to release your financial strongholds, which was everything that we just talked about today. It comes out every Wednesday. There is a new episode. You can find us over on Podbean, and you can also find us over on Apple podcast right now. It's not on Spotify just yet because we have to get 5 episodes. I had another podcast. It was called Real Talk with Ramesha Nicole, but that's currently under contract with another platform. But so there's the Ramesha Nicole Show. And right now I'm currently in this series called Sis, Get Your Mind and Your Money Right. And tomorrow's episode is going to be with a good girlfriend that I connected with over in Chicago, where we talk about those peeling back the layers. And Shannon, you hit it on the nail. One of the things we talked about was, pulling back that layer of unforgiveness and really healing. And then next week, we are going to talk about the whole issue with a girlfriend I know out of Atlanta named Samantha Washington. So it's a series-based podcast, and we talk about just different things of how to rid that stuff that's in here, that's showing up in our finances, that's showing up in our relationships. Next month's series is called, because I've already planned out the schedule. So next month, we are talking about healed, trauma-free finances. And as I mentioned earlier, the body keeps the score and what it looks like to heal. And this is actually my shirt that I have. It's called Healed, Trauma-Free Finances. We're going to be talking about that next month. And then in May, which is known as Mother's Day month, we're going to talk about healing the mother wound. Because I think there are some things that, especially for a lot of women, what I'm realizing is, yes, a lot of women have daddy issues, but a lot of women are dealing with unhealed mama trauma. And so we're going to really be able to unpack and peel back those layers in that season in May, and really talk about, how just even things generationally are passed on to us, and how that impacts how we show up in the world as well as our finances. So I love what I do. I'm glad that I finally am able to walk in this purpose. It has been a journey, but I truly believe that if you do the work and if you stay committed to the process, then you're going to be able to see success in every area of your life, no matter what that looks like.
Well, I first I wanted to say, I was a little quiet after you finished talking about forgiveness, I think because I was pretty humbled by the fact that you were so open in your sharing, and I really, really appreciate that. but I've just, on a very matter of fact note, I just put the link to your podcast in both the Zoom chat and the Facebook chat. And your passion is infectious in the best of the ways of the word infectious. So I'm so glad you are walking in your purpose too, because it's wonderful for a lot of us.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you.
So tell us about these upcoming events and how we're partnering up with NAMI Greater Houston, and we're excited to share that with everyone, because I think this topic is amazing, and I really, your approach, with financial freedom and the stressors with mental health and that connection, I think it's very eye-opening for a lot of people. But share about your wonderful events that you have coming up.
Well, yes, and it actually was just placed into my spirit to be a giver, right? Oftentimes we want to consume a lot, but I find that there's liberation and freedom in giving. And this coming weekend, March 13th through 14th, I am hosting a 2-day live webinar event entitled Sis, Get Your Mind and Your Money Right. It is a part of an overall women mental health and money capital campaign that I am doing. And 50% of the proceeds are going to go to NAMI of Greater Houston, so that we can, yes, help people who need mental health services. My big goal, and last night, y'all, I truly believe that you can dream for free, right? And so last night I was literally just laying and talking to God, and I was like, Lord, I want to be able to raise $50,000 so that we could give back to NAMI. And I was like, you know what? No, that's not enough. Let's go for the big dogs. Let's raise $100,000 so that we can give half of that to NAMI, because there are so many people who need mental health services and who simply just cannot afford it. Rather, that's giving scholarships or even coaching with me. I want to be able to give scholarships to women, be able to give them a portion off or percentage off on my program so that they can get the help that they need. And so the big campaign is Women, Mental Health, and Money. In March, which is this coming weekend, March 13th through 14th, there's Sis, Get Your Mind and Your Money Right. And then next month, April, is Healed Trauma Free Finances. That is a 3-day. That is going to be a 3-day live event. And for anyone who registers to come to the live event this weekend is going to be entered in to win a $50 Amazon gift card. And I don't know about you guys, but I had to put my Amazon Prime membership on pause because when the pandemic first started, I was shopping to clear my mind.
I was on that same boat. I was just addicted to just getting something online, just something delivered. I don't know where I was going to use it or wear it, but it just decreased that. So if people want to register or purchase tickets, where can we find this information?
To register for the 2-day live event this weekend, you can go to RameshaNicole.com/campaign. That's RameshaNicole.com/campaign. And it's only $9.99. And so there are only 100 seats available. So please, registration will close on Friday. So please make sure that you get your tickets. Again, it's only $9.99. And the whole goal is for us to be able to contribute 50% of the proceeds back to NAMI.
That's wonderful. We definitely appreciate the collaboration and the partnership. And I know we will be continuing this conversation on our future events. So yeah, I think that's wonderful. That's very wonderful. I'm looking at our notes here to make sure that we have the questions that we want to cover. Now let's talk about your self-care now that you're in a beginning stage, right? Because you're still growing. We're still growing as an individual. You're growing your company. How do you manage your self-care? And what is it that you were not doing before realizing, your self-growth that you have become to this moment? What tips could you share with anyone about that?
One of the things that I've started doing is, I've been doing this. This is my Wellness Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. The Wellness Wednesdays are days where I have my bath. It's my bath, my bubble bath, and a glass of wine sometimes, because red wine and dark chocolate are my love language. Yes, I know there are the 5 love languages, but if you want to win the way to my heart, a nice glass of cab and some dark chocolate. And so that is my day to really soak. One thing that I also started doing is, also, as you guys know that I'm a believer, my daily to-do list. I stopped creating to-do list the day before. Because what I was finding, and I have a mentor, I'm in her program right now where I'm working on editing and publishing my book, where she taught me how to literally go before God. Now, again, this is not me putting my faith on anyone, but I literally go before God every day and say, God, what are we going to do? And he literally tells me. I have found that there has been liberation in me surrendering to my to-do list. Because I am a recovering workaholic and I am a recovering perfectionist. Even just last night, there was an error that I made when I was fixing the campaign webpage, and he literally whispered to me and said, it's as simple as a click of a button, and I got ahead of him. And because I got ahead of him, I ended up spending 3 hours when all I could have literally spent was 5 seconds fixing one error. So that has been my form of self-care, is learning to surrender my emotions, learning to surrender my feelings, my thoughts, that constant self-talk. Oh, and Apple, thank you, Apple. There is this little thing where if you switch it up, it's a bedtime thing. And it says your phone is going to be silenced until 7:30, but there's a wind down where at 9:00 p.m., my phone literally goes on black. So anyone, you cannot call me. Don't call me after 8:30, 9:00, please. I put hard boundaries in. My friends know, my family know. Don't call me, don't text me, because I'm not going to talk to you. And some of us, we have those hard boundaries. Like, we have an issue with boundaries, right? And that's a form of people pleasing, which I'm still working through that as well. And so those will be the things that I just started implementing. The Wednesday wellness is something that's been ongoing. I fall off sometimes, but I know that when I find myself beginning to be a workaholic again, I got to go back to that Wellness Wednesday, and just that surrendering to my to-do list. What am I going to do today? Lord, what does this look like for me? And that wind down has been a lifesaver. Every night I light my candles, and I have a candle in the restroom, a candle in my room. I turn off the lights, and I'm literally detoxing my mind, because screen time, it makes my head hurt sometimes, especially sitting in front of computers all day. So literally detoxing my brain, and I'll stretch and I'll do a meditation, a breathe in or breathe out, listen to some soaking music, and then I'll fall asleep, and that's it.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I came across the do not disturb kind of set sometimes. And I would tell my friends, hey, this is my do not disturb. And literally the phone, and it almost reminds you too, because, we live in this go, go, go. And, exactly what you're saying, you're adding more to that to-do list every day. And Shannon and I, we message each other all the time. It's like nonstop. Yes. But and we're still, individuals of habit, right? So we have to really remind ourselves, it's okay to disconnect, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes. I do it sometimes. I kind of go up and down, but thanks for the reminder of the do not disturb, because I had stopped doing that. And it kind of just soothed me, like, hey, and it completely shuts down. Like, your phone, it's gone. It's black. It's not going to turn on until you allowed it at that time. So we definitely appreciate that reminder, but you're absolutely right. It's okay to disconnect. And you have to add that to be able to keep sane and positive, and to be able to continue. So
one of the things my psychiatrist told me, because I have panic mood disorder and anxiety and depression, he said, I want you to only list 3 to 4 things on your list. He said, only work on the top 3 major things. He said, because I know you. He said, you are a hard worker. He said, I can tell. He said, but whatever doesn't get done, it is okay. And then I started celebrating a got done list. I had a girlfriend, I don't know who told me, but they said, start celebrating a got done instead of saying, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I got done today.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Feel a little better. It started to make me feel better. And I was like, I like that. So every day, okay, I got this done. So today I got done. I walked my 3 miles today. Boom. Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's
No,
right.
I love that best practice. I'm going to start putting, I have a big white board here that, you know, the moment I started filling it out, our executive director and everybody has that board and they write everything. And I started doing that like 2 weeks ago. And because I'm here and I look up and I would just see more and it just started freaking me out. So I just like erased it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh no, I can't get that reminder of just everything that's going on. But tell everyone your social media and your how they can connect with you on your social media platforms. If they have any questions and reach out to you, we'll definitely be promoting your event for this weekend and the one coming up in April. So we'll be happy to kind of share that with our viewers.
Okay, so thank you again so much, guys, for having me. This conversation was so needed, and I just feel that once we continue to have these type of conscious conversations that we can help people get free. But if you want to connect with me, you can go over to RameshaNicole.com. That is RAM as in Michael, ESHA Nicole.com. And I'm over on both Facebook and Instagram at I am.RameshaNicole. That's at I am.Ramesha Nicole.
Okay, I think we have that, right, Shannon?
Yes, I'm putting it in the chat.
Well, this is wonderful. You're just, I think, I mean, Shannon and I feel the same way. We're just inspired by you, inspired by your vision. We're definitely going to be able to connect with you in future endeavors and continue this conversation. You know, I'm sure during the holidays, you know, debt and stress rises up. So we'll definitely love to kind of bring you back, you know, during those seasons and stuff. And we're very happy that you shared. Pleasure to meet you in this virtual space right now with this wonderful topic.
Yes, we're so very grateful. Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We will see you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday at 4:00 for our live weekly Tuesday talks.
That's right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Ramesha.
Bye, Shannon. It was nice to meet you.
You too.
Bye, Carmen.
Bye.